It was supposed to be just another family BBQ. Laughter, music, the smell of grilled food. And then she said it. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. Everyone laughed, except me. I looked around. My wife, her parents, her friends, all pretending it was just a harmless joke. But that moment, it cracked something open. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. I did something far more powerful. And what followed, no one saw coming. My name is Jackson. I was just stopping by my mother-in-law's house to pick up my wife and our kids. Nothing unusual. But as I walked past the window, I overheard something that made my heart stop. In just a few seconds, everything I believed about my marriage came crashing down. I wasn't supposed to hear it. But I did. And by the time they realized I knew what they were planning, it was already too late. Here's how it all unfolded. I've been married to my wife, Ariana, for 10 years. We have 2 boys. One is 7, the other just turned 5. And they are everything to me. They're the reason I work hard, the reason I try to be better every day. Being a dad has shaped me more than I ever thought possible. My kids are the center of my world. Back when Ariana and I got married, I truly thought I had found the one. My person, the woman I'd grow old with. We built a life, had a family, and for a long time, it felt real. We had our ups and downs like every couple does, but there was real love between us. For the most part, life was good, until something shifted. After our second son was born, Ariana started changing. She wasn't the woman I had married. Little by little, she began pulling away, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. At first, I told myself it was just exhaustion. Raising 2 boys isn't easy. It can drain anyone. And I wasn't exactly present either. I was constantly working, sometimes juggling 2 jobs, picking up weekend shifts, staying late whenever the office asked. I was running on fumes, but I thought that's what fathers were supposed to do. Provide, protect, push through. I didn't want to pressure Ariana or make her feel guilty for needing space. I figured if I stayed consistent, helped where I could, and kept showing up, she'd eventually come back to me. So I swallowed the loneliness. I ignored how she only spoke to me when it was about the boys or the bills. I kept telling myself that motherhood was hard, and it is. But the truth is, I was hurting too. I just didn't feel like I had the right to say it out loud. I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch, something we'd get through. I didn't realize then that the distance between us wasn't temporary. It wasn't just postpartum exhaustion or the chaos of raising kids. No, this was something deeper, something intentional. And looking back now, I can see the signs were always there, hiding in plain sight. It started with her mother. From day one, Ariana's mom made it clear I wasn't her choice. She never had to raise her voice or say it outright. It was in the tone, the tight smiles, the way her eyes seemed to scan me like I was being evaluated and never measuring up. Every visit felt like walking into a job interview I didn't even apply for, and where I was already failing. She'd drop little comments, harmless on the surface, but sharp underneath. Must be nice to have a job where jeans are acceptable, or remember when Ariana dreamed of going to law school? She never said I wasn't enough, but she didn't have to. I was the guy who got her daughter pregnant and ruined her potential. In her eyes, I didn't lift Ariana up. I pulled her into a life of tight budgets and secondhand plans. I felt it every time I stepped through their door. But Ariana was the one who said she wanted this life. The family, the love, the simple things. That's what she told me, and I believed her. But something changed when those weekend visits to her mom started. At first it all made sense. She said she needed a break, that having her mom's help with the boys would let her catch her breath. We only had one car, so every Friday evening I'd drive them over and pick them up again Sunday afternoon. I never complained. I figured she needed the rest. But it didn't stop. Week after week, like clockwork, she'd pack up the kids and head out. While they were gone, I'd do everything I could to make our home feel warm. I'd clean every corner, cook her favorite meals, fold the boys' laundry just right, all hoping she'd come back and feel how much I still loved her. But every time she walked through that door, she seemed a little colder, a little further away. I told myself not to press her. What I didn't realize back then was that the same woman who never believed I was good enough, my mother-in-law, was finally saying the quiet part out loud in Ariana's ear. And I couldn't compete with that. One regular Sunday, while I thought I was preparing a welcome, scrubbing the kitchen, fluffing the pillows, tucking the kids' sheets tight, something much bigger was unraveling behind my back. I thought love would be enough to close the distance between us. I just didn't know someone else was working to widen it. As a final touch, I picked up her favorite takeout from that little Thai place she always insists on, exactly the way she likes it. I was hoping we could sit down, eat together, and maybe feel like partners again, even if just for a moment. When it was time to pick them up from her mom's house, I grabbed my keys and headed out, still holding on to that sliver of hope. I pulled up to the curb, parked the car, and started walking toward the front door. The living room window was cracked open, and just as I reached the porch, I heard voices. My mother-in-law's, sharp and unmistakable. "You've got him wrapped around your finger," she said. "Men like him are easy." I froze. Then came Ariana's voice. "I know. I just need him to keep supporting everything until I can sort things out. Then I'll tell him it's over." My heart sank. I didn't move. Her mother replied without missing a beat. "Good. You don't owe him anything. You gave him kids. Now it's time to live for yourself. He's just a stepping stone." Ariana laughed, a soft chuckle, and added, "He'll be crushed, but he'll get over it." I can't fully explain what happened inside me in that moment. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness. It was something colder, quieter. I turned around without knocking and walked slowly back to the car. Thai food still in hand, and a storm I hadn't seen coming now breaking inside my chest. I had to sit down. My legs barely held me, so I just stayed there in the driver's seat, trying to hold myself together while everything inside me unraveled like loose threads in a worn-out shirt. You go through life thinking love means partnership, that even in the hard seasons you're both still pulling in the same direction. But hearing those words, it felt like someone reached into my chest and torched everything I thought was solid. Was it all a lie? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just a placeholder until she could figure out her next chapter? For a split second, I wanted to march inside and confront them both, demand answers, blow everything wide open. But sitting there, in that quiet storm of heartbreak and disbelief, I realized something. If I lost it, if I gave in to that anger, they'd use it against me. I knew how this played out. If Ariana really was planning to leave, she'd have the house, the kids, the narrative. And me? I'd just be the guy who snapped. I'd lose more than a marriage. I'd lose the chance to protect my boys. So I made the hardest call of my life. I wiped my face, took a deep breath that didn't feel like enough, and stepped out of the car like I hadn't just heard my world fall apart. I walked up to the house with the takeout bag in my hand, forced to smile like I always did, and greeted them like nothing was wrong, not because I was weak, far from it, but because I knew right then I needed to buy myself time. If they were making plans behind my back, then I had to stop reacting and start thinking 10 steps ahead. That moment on the sidewalk, with the window still echoing in my mind, was the turning point. Everything in me shifted. From that day on, I moved differently. I paid closer attention, asked fewer questions, and started planning in silence. A few days later, I quietly booked a consultation with a family attorney. No heads up, no second opinions. I didn't even tell my best friend. I had to understand what I was really up against and what it would take to protect myself, and more importantly, protect my sons, if what I overheard ever became real. When I finally sat across from the attorney, I laid it all out. He listened, asked sharp questions, and then mapped out a clear game plan. First, he said, do not leave your home, not under any circumstance unless a court says otherwise. If you walk out, it could look like you abandoned your family, and that narrative can do serious damage. He also told me something I'll never forget. No matter how hurt or betrayed you feel, never speak poorly about their mother in front of your kids. That'll come back around, not just in court, but in their hearts too. The goal, he said, was simple. Stay grounded, stay calm, and stay involved. Judges don't just look at who's angry or hurt, they look at who's consistent. Who shows up. Who puts the kids first. So that became my mission. From that moment on, I decided I was going to be the stable parent, the one who didn't flinch, who didn't fold, who stayed present no matter how messy it got. I knew I had to overhaul my daily life. No more late shifts, no more collapsing on the couch too tired to even ask how their day went. That version of me had to go. I began turning down overtime, and instead of spending weekends alone, scrolling, or sulking, I took my boys camping when they were with me. We pitched tents, roasted marshmallows, told stories under the stars. I wanted them to feel it, not just know I was their dad, but feel I was their anchor. I made it my job to drive them to school every morning. I shook hands with their teachers, introduced myself to their pediatrician, made sure every adult in their world knew who I was. I wasn't just a paycheck or a name on an emergency contact form. I was there, fully and intentionally. And while I stayed steady for my sons, I also made one more change. I stopped trying to decode Ariana. Before, I kept asking myself why she was distant or cold. I kept blaming stress or exhaustion. But after what I heard at her mother's house, I let go of the fantasy. I stopped chasing her approval or begging for affection. She made her position clear, so I let her drift. I gave that energy to my boys instead. And quietly, I started documenting everything. When arguments broke out, I kept my phone recording nearby. I never raised my voice. I didn't take the bait. I just let her unravel while I stayed composed. There were nights she called me worthless. Nights she threatened to take everything and leave me with nothing. One night, during a heated argument, she even slapped me. That moment was caught on a hidden camera I had quietly installed in the house, something she didn't know existed. And in that moment, I realized silence wasn't weakness. It was power. While she thought I was shrinking, I was building. A case, a future, a plan. Financially, I shifted too. I used to hand over everything, every cent, every paycheck, thinking it was what a good partner did. Not anymore. I opened a separate account. Quietly, carefully, I started splitting my income. She still got support, just enough to keep things steady, so she couldn't claim neglect or sabotage. But I was also stashing money aside. Legal fees, future housing, everything I'd need if it all blew up. I wasn't fueling her lifestyle blindly anymore. I was preparing. Calculated, intentional, focused. The attorney warned me early on. If she filed, she might claim financial abandonment to tilt the case in her favor. So I made sure she couldn't. Every deposit, every receipt, I documented everything. Looking back now, that period of my life, it was the most disciplined I've ever been. I couldn't afford a single misstep. I had to stay composed, stay quiet, and smile through it all like nothing had changed, even though everything had. And I did. I pulled it off. But I won't lie. When the divorce papers finally landed on my desk, I didn't feel victory. I just sat there, in silence, letting it sink in. Even though I'd been bracing for this since the day I heard her and her mother at that window, some part of me still held out hope. That maybe this wouldn't be the ending, that maybe we'd find our way back. But we didn't. Ariana filed, and just like that, the life we built became a case number. She didn't just file, she came in swinging. Right out the gate, she made claims that I was abusive, that I'd neglected her and our boys, that I didn't bring in enough money, and worse, that I refused to work harder for the family. I wasn't shocked she'd go low. I knew she'd try to shatter everything I'd built, the husband, the father, the provider I had worked so hard to be. She was crafting her case with lies, and I understood something fast. If I didn't stay sharp, If I didn't keep my emotions in check, I could lose everything that actually mattered. But this is where her strategy started to crumble. When she accused me of abuse, I had the receipts, clear audio of her shouting, tearing me down, threatening me, even one night physically striking me in a rage. I never raised my voice, never laid a hand. I stayed composed, always. And when it came to claims I didn't provide, I had the bank records, the canceled overtime shifts, the notes from teachers and doctors showing how present I'd been for my sons. I didn't just say I was involved, I proved it. Her version of the truth couldn't hold up. Every time she tried to label me unstable or negligent, hard evidence said otherwise. That's when she started unraveling, losing her cool in court. Snapping, trying to provoke me. Sending bait texts, hoping I'd lash out, hand her something to use against me. But I stayed on course. Cool, civil, distant. And eventually the court saw it clearly. I wasn't the bitter man she described. I was a father, steady, quiet, and prepared, who'd been putting his children first while his wife planned her exit behind closed doors. And in the end, the judge ruled exactly as they should. Got 60-40. It's custody. My boys would stay with me during the week and she'd have them on the weekends. It wasn't full custody, but it was enough to give them the stability they needed and ensure I stayed present in their everyday lives. Ariana got the car, but I held on to the family home, the place where my kids still felt safe. There was no alimony awarded. None. The court saw no reason for it, especially after she'd gone back to work to pay for her own legal fees during the divorce. Looking back, I don't feel victorious the way some people might expect. This wasn't about winning or revenge. It was about protecting what mattered most. My sons, our home, and the life I was trying to hold together. I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I stayed steady, stayed smart, while she was too busy planning her escape. And if you've made it this far in the story, thank you. Because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about realizing the person you trusted most was quietly preparing to walk away, like none of it ever meant a thing. And here's what I've learned: silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes staying calm, focused, and collected is the loudest thing you can do. If I had exploded with anger that day at her mother's window, I could have lost everything: my home, my peace, my kids. Instead, I sat with the pain, bit down, hard, and used that moment to start planning a better future, one that couldn't be taken from me so easily. Another thing I've learned: don't brush off the quiet changes in a relationship. I should have paid more attention when she started pulling away after our youngest was born. I blamed it on stress, exhaustion, the chaos of parenting. But the truth? She had already started checking out, and I was too buried in work and too hopeful to see it for what it really was. And finally, document everything. I mean it. People will smile at you while they're setting fire to your foundation behind your back. Keep records. Stay alert. You don't need to be flawless. Just consistent. Be there for your kids. Be present. Don't hand anyone ammunition to use against you later. That's how I made it through. Not by being perfect, but by staying ready. Now let me ask you something. What would you have done in my shoes? If you overheard the person you love making plans to leave you and take everything with them, smiling while they did it? How? Would you respond? Drop your thoughts in the comments. You never know. Someone reading them might be going through the same thing right now. Your words could mean more than you think. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourself.